Borys is a drone operator with combat experience along almost the entire Ukrainian frontline. He took part in the fighting in Irpin, Bucha, Bakhmut, Mykolaiv and Kherson regions and in the Kharkiv direction. In the summer he was wounded near Klishchiivka near Bakhmut and is currently undergoing rehabilitation. For security reasons, we will not specify his surname or the combat unit in which he serves. My combat experience started back in the days of Maidan. It would be realistic to say that it started since that time. Then, almost immediately, with a short break, I was in the anti-terrorist operation, taking part in combat operations. The beginning of the full-scale war caught me with my family in Kiev. As we planned, I took my family out of Kiev region, and I returned to my friends. And, in fact, we can say that I joined the Ukrainian Defense Forces. In fact, the work of a drone operator requires much more preparation than just getting to the position, setting up where you will work and then safely moving away. Because it's much harder than just flying. Drone operators are one of the priority targets for the Russian military, and they often try to kill them earlier, faster, and use more ammunition against them than they would against some artillery. During the Kharkiv operation, it was difficult because we often did not have time to make a trench because we had to change positions. And in reality, you are already lying down. Someone is digging a trench under you. And then an hour later you need a new place, because the drone simply does not reach the necessary points. We cannot see what is happening. So, it's simple. If you don't fly and watch with a Mavic, which you can buy and repair, then your comrade will have to go and watch. Accordingly, we always try to fly the drone at its maximum capabilities to look more closely. Again, either the drone will see it, I'll use the drone from somewhere relatively safe in a trench, or it will actually go to the soldier to look with his eyes and have a kind of bad surprise. Probably, the hardest part was near Kiev. Purely because the enemy is almost at home. And all the places you grew up in, where you went to work, where you went on vacation, and now the enemy has almost reached them. These are some of the most difficult moments. And everything else, thank God, is perceived as a job that needs to be done, and you just do it. And of course, one of the hardest battles was when we were in Bakhmut. It was the fall of last year, almost winter, when the Russians were advancing and advancing. Then, yes, it was hard. This is not only in Klishchiivka and Andrivka, but also in other settlements, where there is nothing at all. We have seen similar landscapes in Kherson and Mykolaiv regions, where only basements remained intact. Everything has been destroyed, there are no areas with trees, they have been simply ground up by artillery. The main problem with such areas is that it is difficult to find positions from which to fly. There is no cover, no trees for camouflage, no trenches and no engineering defensive positions. It's very difficult, you just seem to be sitting in a field in a hole. Of course, if we see that the situation is getting worse, for example, the weather conditions are deteriorating, the conditions for electronic warfare, for example, we try to take this into account the situation as much as possible and change something. We change our position or route in order to save the drone. Of course, it happens that it is impossible to do this and there are losses of drones. What I really like is the fact that you can help your comrades. When our soldiers or those from neighboring units come and say thank you. They say that thanks to our work, there are no dead or a small number of wounded. Or, they thank us for helping to detect something, and you see that your work makes sense and you see the result. And the result is not in the long term. For example, theoretically, the number of Russians will decrease and maybe the war will be one day shorter. But here you can actually see that the person left, you helped him, and he returned from his work safe and sound. Well, that's very nice. We once accidentally looked at the flight statistics, and of course, there are hundreds of flight hours. It's clear that these are not only my hours, but also those of my colleagues. But you're still proud and think, wow, professional pilots. But we fly at least once every half an hour or so. It all depends on the intensity and how the situation changes. I don't work for some private company and do something thousands of kilometers away from home. This is a war at home, a war for the future. For the future, first of all, of my son, and I really don't want him to take part in any hostilities. So I am trying to solve this issue before his 18th birthday. So that neither he nor his peers will have to go through all this and take part in it. This is my motivation. The most memorable are the friends you lost in the war, and it seemed that some people could not die. This person is lucky, bright and kind, and nothing can happen to them. And then it happens, and it's like a mountain in my memory. You remember the whole period of the war as a single path that you go down, and periodically there are mountains on this path that remind you of your friends. Well, something like that. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to the channel, share this video with your friends. The world must know and see what is happening in Ukraine.